Hi, I'm Khandie. You already know this, and this is my 2024 review of the year. And I'm going to be so honest with you, it has been a mixed bag, but I feel like as I am very much trying to be open and honest, I feel like this should be the de-influencing view of 2024. Some of it's great, some of it's been incredible, some of it's been heartbreaking, and some of it's been absolutely atrocious. And I'm worried that perhaps social media has made you think that people are living their best life and running around like crazy and whatever. So I want to de-influence it, but be brutally honest in every aspect of this. So sit back and let's see how terrible or amazing my 2024 was, so that you don't feel like you are being lied to or misled, but also maybe it'll make you feel better about your 2024. But I do want to say right now, right here, you guys who watch these videos, who comment, are literally so much part of the confidence building in me for 2024. You have been incredible. Without you supporting and some of your comments and some of the nasty comments I get, honestly, some of them, you have inspired me to be a better photographer, a better educator, and a better person generally. If it wasn't for you guys and many of the people I meet on social media, I wouldn't have written my book, done the podcast. By the way, you should totally listen to that now. I wouldn't be putting myself more forward. So 2025 is definitely the year that I'm going to be even more putting myself forward. Is that even correct English? It's probably not. Putting myself forward as an educator, content creator, and a photographer, because I want to be the voice that I wish I heard all those years ago. And what I'm finding is that that kind of philosophy I have is resonating with so many of you. So thank you. Thank you for being here and staying here. So let's get into 2024. 2024 was not smooth sailing, to be honest. There were some big wins. There were some big wins. There were some absolute incredible wins. There were some big name clients. There were some big name deals that went down. There was highs and lows and awfulness and greatness. But it has been a year that has tested me, and I'm gonna say it right now. It's not the most challenging year, but it definitely is so close. It might as well have been. So I'm not going to start with the negative. I'm going to do all of them in kind of like in order. So let's just kind of start with how I kicked off the year. Okay, I kicked off the year, I'll be honest, thinking, ugh, this is horrible. Got invited to the Rhythm and Posy Awards, voted for somebody else in my category because I was nominated for Photographer of the Year, only to go and win it. And if you saw me at the awards ceremony, you would have seen my face doing this. And people had to nudge me to go on stage. I did not have a speech prepared. Apparently everyone else did. I did not. And in fact, my speech was like, oh my God, I won. Oh my God. And then they asked me for a speech and I said, pay your effing creatives, which I think is something we can resonate with everybody. What I loved about Rhythm and Posy Award is that it's a local community, and it's a local music scene, and it really, really tries to find the underdog or the underappreciated person and recognizes the valiant efforts people are making. And the amazing feedback I got about what I do for the local music industry as a photographer, as somebody who goes and photographs the gigs, but also photographs album covers and promo shots for the local bands and beyond, was just honestly, I did not realize I'd done so much, because I don't always take stock of it. But that was incredible. What a great way to start the year. And I will say, my outfit, fine. Although I wish I had sort of not let those massive platform heels take an absolute stronghold on me, because I carried on for every award ceremony I went to, which sounds like a lot, but it's only like 3. So yeah. I will say, let's just jump straight onto the awards, actually, because let's just keep it going with the good momentum. The next award I won, can you believe that? The next was one that I wasn't 100% sure I would fit in for. Like, it's the British Ex-Forces in Business Awards, which are essentially for ex-forces people. I'm ex-RAF. We can laugh at that about being ex-forces as a joke in that. And I couldn't believe it. I went to this amazing ballroom in London. Like, it's incredible. Like, 5-star hotel, ballroom, chandeliers, like fine dining. And I had to fly out to Norway that the following morning, very, very early, the first flight out. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, if I get stuck in London, I'm going to have to fly in this ball gown. And I did not choose a subtle ball gown. I was wearing a lime green sequin ball gown with a little train, because it's me, right? And I was like, it's okay. And then I was thinking, imagine getting on an EasyJet flight in this or a Ryanair flight. Hi, just me. And I was right at the back of the room. There's about 20 odd table depth in front of me. And there's like, I think 5,000 people sat in this room. I don't know how many, loads. Okay, loads. We're talking loads. And then they put up our category and I was like, oh, that's cool. Carried on eating my food because, it's food and I love it. And people were drinking wine. I wasn't, because I knew I had to fly in the morning. And I was like, no. And then I managed to put a bit of food in my mouth and was chewing on it when they said I'd won. And everyone on my table went, and I was like, me. And I was like, do I spit this out or try and swallow it? So I swallowed it. And then while swallowing it, tried to leg it to the front of the stage, because I'll be brutally honest, it's a long way, like a long way. I felt like I was walking for 10 years in these stupidly obnoxive heels that I told you previously had a grip on me. I got there and I got the award, and they were like, do you have anything to say? And I was like, oh, I did this for my students. Now, if you don't know why I won that award, it's quite a moment for me. I have spent a lot of my time teaching quietly or not so quietly. And this award particularly was because of the work I'd done for Headway, which is a centre for adults with traumatic brain injuries, both um, acquired and born with. And I teach the photography now. I get paid a very small wage at the time, and it did not cover anything really. It didn't cover the software I use. I got free things 3D printed, so it was more adaptable. I bought extra camera bodies. I bought a laptop that was more accessible to them. And ultimately, I was running at a massive deficit, but I kept going for the love of it. Now, really sadly, like really, really sadly, I'm no longer teaching there because the charity have closed that section. They were unable to continue to support themselves, and my wonderful students who got published like literally a month before the place closed in the Headway magazine, it closed, and they're now elsewhere, and I'm not in contact with them because of obviously you can't be, and so it's absolutely gutting. But I also won and I need to trigger this. So if you are triggered, please just skip to this bit to the next bit for the next 30 seconds. The work I do of Remember My Baby, I volunteer as a photographer, which is a remembrance photography service for families in the worst time of their life, the most imaginable loss of their child. And it's deeply humbling and moving, and it's not for the faint of heart. And I won for this, and I remember looking at this woman held my hands and said, I remember you. And she was one of my mums. I'd photographed her child. And that was at the Forces Award. So that was a bit of a moment. Luckily, I did not have to wear my ball gown on the plane. I think unluckily or luckily, depending on how you look at it, and I managed to get off. And then the final award, technically I won a few other little awards along the way, but I also won BBC Radio Northampton Inspiration of the Year and the carer category. Not because I'm a carer, but it's the caring I do in my community with my photography and how I use it to make lives better. And one of them is, again, the Remember My Baby work, and the fact that I photograph the fly tipping and hold the council to task over this needs to be sorted because it causes an accessibility issue and it just makes the area look untidy. But people were like, and the work I do at Headway as well, that was all part of it. It was just a big win. I won a couple of golds from the society. No, I won a gold at the societies. I think I won a merit as well somewhere. But I also won other things like for business awards. But those are the 3 awards I think that really stuck out. I will say there were quite a big lot of highlights, but I want to talk about some of the lower points. I'm just getting close. Lower points, obviously, Headway going was really hard for me because if you know something, I'm incredibly passionate about teaching, incredibly passionate. And when that finished, I was utterly heartbroken, I'll be honest, because I've loved it and I've loved every second of it. And I have a great love for my students. That meant that I had time free. And although I was still teaching at the retirement village, it was great that I was able to open up my time to teach for people at the Shaw Trust. And also for one of the referral units for children who need an alternative career pattern. So that was the CE Academy. And I was able to take these children in who don't necessarily find traditional education great for them. So they came in, I taught, and they were brilliant. They kept me on my toes. The banter game was strong. And do you know what? I loved it. But financially, the year was tough. And I can't hide that. It was tough. People complain weddings were down. They were down, but it wasn't so much that. It was the fact that I was seeing people who are pretending to, well, they are photographers who weren't operating appropriately. For example, I had 4 brides, or couples, should I say, reach out to me and ask me for advice over photographers who had absconded with their money and hadn't provided their images. I had 2 brides that asked me to re-edit their wedding photos because the photographer refused to edit them anymore and had given permission for them to send it to me. And the work was not to standard on their portfolio, quite obviously. There was a number of instances of people getting work despite the fact that a lot of the work on their website or their social media or their mailing letter, the newsletter, was other people's work or not actually theirs, and they declined to make that obvious. That's not to say that was the only reason it was financially hard. All of the bills went up and they're going up again. But also just people, the government here in the UK, it really has a knock-on effect of how people spend and how they spend their money. And it was very much evident in that, that people weren't spending as much. And also I just felt like I couldn't raise my prices as much as I needed to keep my profit margin. Cause people in business have profit, because I just felt ethically I couldn't. So I didn't. Um, because I felt like, I don't know, business coaches go mad at me, but I just felt like I wanted the people to still get what they wanted, but and I still wanted to do what I wanted. I still needed to live, but I necessarily was okay to take a hit on my profits. Unlike some of the big companies in the world, I didn't think my profit margin was the absolute essential thing in this. But also, I was able to look back. So I used Studio Ninja to look back on year, and yeah, there was a deficit there. I also found that a lot of events weren't having pro photographers anymore, and a lot of companies went bust. A lot of companies closed down, particularly towards the end of this year. And whereas normally in around the sort of festive period, I would be doing loads of event photography, I wasn't. And when I did, they were still big, but it wasn't as much. I remember quoting for a medical convention, and they said, "Oh, we need you for 4 days, 6 a.m. in the morning until 10 at night each day. How much was it?" And I told them. They said, "Oh, we've only budgeted like £500 max." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they got somebody for that. And I was like, mad. But this is what happens. This is what happens. But there were some big wins, and I need to acknowledge that with you. So one of the biggest wins for me was, and I'm going to say it, was taking to the big stage. And I mean this, taking to the big stage. So for years, I have always worried that I was not enough. That I wasn't going to fit in, because I feel like the photography scene certainly has a type that it seemed to like. In my ignorance, I felt that. And then I started to talk more with some people I respected. I remember having this great talk on a sofa in a hotel in London at an event thing. And this wonderful person who I often speak about said to me, "Keep doing you," or words to that effect. So I did. And before I knew it, I was taking to the stage, the biggest stage, I think, in the UK. I'm going to say that, for photography and videography, which was the Photography and Video Show in Birmingham.
What Mill's a great photographer. See, these are my friends. Chandler's a great attorney. Get up there. Okay, these are not your competition. But if you want to market and you don't know how, you need to make the time to find that out. YouTube is free. Sit down. You haven't got the time.
But to be invited to speak, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure anyone's going to come. It's just me. And I remember getting mic'd up, and I had my friend there, the Beard Wanderer, who's a great YouTuber, by the way, and my partner and my friends, with some of my friends from the photography, like, "Oh, come along." And I was like, "Yeah, that's great. I hope other strangers come along. I love my friends being there, but it's important, it's not just, your mates there, as much as I love them." And they were incredible. And I remember like being, behind the stage, and then I peeked my head out, and I was like, "Ugh," and then there was no seats. Everyone was just sat. There was no spare seats. I was like, "Oh my God, this is it. This is it." And I remember that first word coming out of my mouth, and I looked around and made people laugh. And then as I was going through, I happened to glance up occasionally, and there was like, people were just filling in, finding space to fill in. And you can watch that video. I'll put it here. There was no room at the back of the room, because people just clocked on there. And then when I finally finished, I got this big cheer. But people around the sides, like the suppliers, were like saying that was the best one we've had. Now, they probably said that to everybody, but for me, that meant a lot. And now I'm speaking again at the photo show for the next one in London. And I just realized this is what I needed to be, the voice that people needed to hear. And I remember sitting there amongst my friends, and people were asking for photos with me. And I was just like, I think I'm slowly becoming the person I wish I discovered all that time ago. So I need to be the hero in this story. I needed to be. And it just gave me the inspiration to do it. That didn't mean it didn't come with its naysayers. I had a couple of people saying that they thought I was a bit too gobby, that my style of presenting wasn't really for them, and that's okay. That's not negative to say the style isn't for them, but someone said, "I just think it's just a bit too much." You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm okay being too much for you, because it might be that you're just not enough for yourself. I know it's really shitty to say, but I've decided that's the mentality I'm have. Do not have a go at me because I'm taking up space that you wish you'd taken up. If you want that space, go take it. So that was the mentality I had, and it was partly fueled by you guys being here. So, I was starting to do so much, and slowly I got the confidence to go after so many people. Literally after the photo talk, someone asked me, "Hey, would you write a book?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to write a book. Like, books are thick and dense, and like, I don't want to do that." And someone said, "Why don't you just write it short and sweet like you?" And I was like, I'm not sure. I'm 5'7", leave me alone. And so it was a publisher, and I said, okay. So I did a quick, like, if you like, a little little brief one, and they went, "This is brilliant. We have an idea. We've got a marketing plan." And they initially wanted me to bulk it out to like a 200 page book, and I was like, "No, I don't want a 200 page book, because the whole point is it's no BS." And they also wanted to put the price up quite high, and eh, they started to ask me things like, "Oh, do you mind just toning this down?" And I was like, "Do you know what? No. I mean, they're great, and they probably know, and maybe I should have gone with them." So I decided to self publish. And what was incredible was that how many books I sold the day I launched. Now, I will say I bricked it when I was doing it. I did all my own marketing. I shared it on my social media. I talked about it. I got you guys involved, and you guys were 100% with me on it. And it was so great. But what was hard was that I was scared, because this is the biggest thing I've put out there as a book. And I will happily say that it went to Amazon top seller for 2 weeks. And it was in its category in the top 10 for ages. It even got to the one spot and then stayed in the top 10 for ages. And it just kept selling and selling and selling. And the feedback was incredible. And I kept getting people saying, "Oh my God, it's so your voice. It's so incredible. It's amazing." People asked me to sign books. I was in my friend's cafe and someone came in with a book and said, "Can you sign this for me?" I was like, "What?" And like I was signing it, and I'm still signing some, like, ego boost, but yeah. And then I got this one negative one that was like, it didn't hurt, because it kind of missed the point of the book, and that was okay. And it basically said, "Oh, it's too brief," which was the whole point. It's meant to be brief. And the words was the lettering was a bit big. And I was like, well, that's because I asked on the audience, my social media, and people said, "Could we have bigger writing?" Because, in little books, it's quite hard to read. And I saw the word accessible. So I put it up 2 points. Um, I'm back. So I put it up 2 points, and this person, they said the words were great, and it was more like a pamphlet. I was like, yeah, that's fine. It says literally on the book, it's a short guide. It's no BS. It's not meant to be hoarded and like spend hours reading it. And I had it at the price of a magazine. So I put that up, and I gave a positive response to that negative, if you like, 1-star review, and I sold 30 books that day. So I learned to twist it. And then that ultimately leads me on to doing the podcast. Now it's still in its infancy, and I launched it this month. But that's what made me start being the podcast, because I want to take up the spaces and be the voice that I want to hear. And now I'm being invited onto other people's podcasts. You might have read. You might have heard the podcast of me on the BIPP's podcast when they interviewed me at the photography show. I thought they were going to do a little vox pop with me. It turns out they made a whole episode of me. You can listen to that on Spotify. And that made me realize maybe I'm quite okay being on the podcast. So I started to do it, and it started to happen. Now, big brands came into the studio, and I worked with big brands, and I had these big moments, and sometimes I had to sign NDAs, and I worked. There was a really weird job that I spoke about on my social media that I'm going to share. So there was this whole thing about, and it still is a huge thing about, being authentic in your photography, that people want it to be more relatable. I remember getting paid by a very big brand this year to photograph their whole capsule collection for their social media, not on my professional camera, but on an iPhone. And that was a very surreal moment for me. I was like, but yeah. And seeing my work getting featured, I walked around my town, and one of my headshots was on a billboard. And I know that's partly because of the person who was on, but it was just those moments, and seeing, I got in Digital Photographer magazine, and I was in other magazines, and I was like, oh my God, this is my year. But as with every high, there's always a crashing low. But you know what? It was fine. But what was lovely is that I got repeat clients from previous years and the year coming in with me. And I was able to do everything from capturing wedding pictures to my friend's baby arriving, to my friend's grandchild arriving, to milestone photos, beautiful families, and just some incredible moments, and starting my personal project, which was the human tapestry of Northampton. So I'll put that video there if you want to watch that. And everything just started to become amazing. And I think one of the moments where I realized I loved my job was I was at the Remembrance Day, and all the photographers who I love were all there, and we're all there covering the same event, but from a different angle and for different people. And we took a selfie, and this was friendship. This was not competition. And I felt so welcome and love with these people. I recommend work to them, and I talk about them with such high esteem. And I've never felt in any way anything but love for these people, and it was incredible. So yeah. We could talk about things that have happened. I got my Lens Baby ambassadorship has continued. My Analog Wonderland ambassador came around, where I'm doing film photography, and I was able to share my film photography more, because if you don't know, I also shoot film, and seeing people love my film. And I will say Phoenix Harmon and Minnow and all of the Candidas have my soul. Which is weird, you know, like I'm a color girly and I love it. And I'm so proud. Analog Wonderland are an incredible company and it was a great pleasure to be an ambassador. And then lately, towards the end of the year, Kate's Backdrop started sending me more stuff and I did a whole video on that. People loved that. And I managed to synchronize some of their work with them for the International Women's Day when I was photographing all the portraits. And, you know, people laughed at this video that I put up of me trying to put the background down because Cutsville backgrounds are a nightmare. But not with this one because I now know how to do it. And little things just like making it better. And then at the end of the year, Retouch for me said, would you like to have our software if you like it? And like I said, first of all, because, you know, I'm an integral girly, integrity is important. I said, let me test it out first. I don't want to do it and not test it. And I tested it and I loved it. And then I've been using it in a project and it's felt amazing to be able to do that. Now, this year has not been without personal growth and some hard lessons. I lost some friends in the worst possible way. 6 of my friends have left this world. And it hit really hard, like really hard. I'm not going to go into it. I don't want to trigger anybody, but it really, really rocked my foundation. And I struggle even now sometimes because I still want to pick up the call phone and call them. Because I lost 3 really quickly and then literally had like a breather of a month and then lost 3 again. And I just couldn't get air. I don't know how to explain it. And it just meant I realized that I throw myself into work so much. I drove myself into a brick wall mentally. And chasing these big dreams and serving clients just became like I had to do the job right then and there because I didn't want to breathe because it meant I would think about losing my friends and I couldn't call them and I couldn't talk to them. So I just kept working and working and working. And I just, one night, I think I was listening to Purple Rain on the music channel and I broke down in tears and I sang karaoke to it really loudly and knew that I needed a break. So I took a little couple of weeks off, never really told anybody. No one really noticed because I'd have everything scheduled. But I took some self-care time. It's really important. And I knew financially it was going to be tough, but I knew I had to take some time out. So I started doing passion projects and finding what I loved and taking care of myself. I went to Oslo and hung out with my friends. I remember like absolutely loving getting up in the morning and watching her little boy ride around on his balance bike and just thinking this is the perfect therapy. Like he's such a beautiful boy and they are such a beautiful family and she's such a beautiful friend. And, like there's her little boy on this balance bike. I thought this is perfect. This is what I needed. And I remember sitting out at the Oslo harbour and just sitting there for hours and looking out and going, I'm going to be okay. Because my friends gave me the skills to cope, to do this because they were there with me. So I'm going to be okay. So yeah, that happened. So it's important. I learned a bit more of balance and better to be a better human. And you might have known that my dog is now getting older and I know I haven't got much time with her. So I'm spending as much as I can. I traveled a lot. My friendships have been stronger. I got a great one. I got a new window in the studio and I think that's incredible. I became more open on social media. But I want to tell you, and I'm going to say this straight to you, 2025 is going to be tough, kiddo. It's going to be tough. Financially, emotionally, time-wise, it's going to be tough. But it's okay because we're in it. You, me, and everyone else in this godforsaken creative industry are in it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know I am not going to stop trying to push myself as a business and as a person to do better, be better, and find the balance. I'm not just going to break down barriers as much as I can. I'm going to take up fucking room. I'm going to make space for myself. I'm going to do bigger projects, make deeper connections and more moments that matter, be that from a personal perspective or a business perspective. So to you who might be worried that your 2024 was tough, it's okay. I think anyone would be lying if they said it was magical and it was perfect all year round. I think people who say that are absolute bullcrap and they need to be not on social media. I got bad haircuts. I got bad dye jobs. I literally got a worse dye job and never went online for it, hit it up. I dropped a camera. I smashed a lens. I paid an assistant who robbed the studio. I I freshly painted the studio floor and some builders scratched the hell out of it, and then I had to repaint it the next day, literally. My car went missing and then got returned. An SD card broke in my hands, literally disintegrated. I lost my temper at another photographer in a field in Norway because he kept making homophobic references, and I couldn't stand for that. And I was suddenly worried that I might have said too much, but then I realized I don't care because I don't like that kind of language. And turned around and people were clapping me. So um, I'm going to take up space because I think people like me should be able to have space in this wonderful creative world, because sometimes there is somebody who's going to hate you, and that's okay. As Duty Von T says, I could be the juiciest peach in the bowl, but everyone likes peaches. I'm okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, the problem is on you, not me, because I'm not doing anything to deliberately harm anybody, not doing anything to deliberately hurt people. I'm just being the voice that I wish I could hear more in the photography industry, and particularly for someone who was like me getting up in this business. So have an amazing 2024 as if it is not yet finished for you. Take 2025 with short firm steps into it. Plan, try and do as much automation as you can to take a little pressure off yourself. Learn to say no more than you say yes. Learn about doing your cost of business, because it's all going to be changing. And I urge you to keep creating no matter what you create. Just keep creating, because that is what feeds your mind. And if you're ever inclined, buy my book and listen to my podcast. You've been a pleasure. And I mean this. You've really helped me. This feels like a therapy session. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You're not probably going to subscribe now. It feels like I've cried twice, 3 times, 4 times a lady. That's not even it, is it? 5 times. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, see you all in the next video. See you in 2025, my darlings. See ya.